Welcome to the Uncanny Magazine Podcast, episode 64B. I am Michael Damian Thomas, the co-editor-in-chief and co-publisher of Uncanny Magazine. Well, welcome, Space Unicorns. We are, I believe, headed into a Space Unicorn summer, because every summer is a Space Unicorn summer. Here it has been storm season still, the last little bits of storm season here in central Illinois. We are headed towards corn season, where the corn sweat is like breathing through a wet sock. Yay that. It's always nice when I'm told you should take more walks and it's like, have you tried walking in central Illinois though? But yes, it is wonderful outside right now. It is a gorgeous day today as I record this. So I hope wherever you are, it's okay. Obviously, the world itself, it is still the world itself. A lot of stuff that is up and down, but mostly, a lot of scary stuff still. So anyway, Space Unicorns, I hope wherever you are, you're doing okay. You are keeping together. Right now, I'm recording this. Season of Doctor Who just ended. Don't know if there's more Doctor Who coming. Lots of twists and turns in it. Will not spoil it, but as all of you know, I've been a maybe you don't know, but I have been a Doctor Who fan pretty much for my entire life. Good 40 years of fandom now. And I'm very happy with another season, but this one's a little, it's a bittersweet end because, basically the Nishutigawa era, well, let's just say I just wish Caitlin was there to have watched it. Caitlin was a huge Doctor Who fan, and it was wonderful taking her to conventions and meeting actors, and she loved watching Doctor Who. And before she passed, she'd actually been in the middle of a watch all the Doctor Who ever in order watch. So it's hard to watch the Doctor Who without thinking about my daughter being there, and I miss her dearly. But anyway, if you don't watch Doctor Who, go watch Doctor Who. Maybe you will like it. And now, the news. So not a lot of news this month, Space Unicorns, but I am actually going to be going to one of those convention things that I hear so much about. It's been a while since I, have not been going to as many science fiction fantasy events over the last few years for lots of different reasons that most of you know or don't know, but between Caitlin, my daughter's Caitlin's health and the world, it has been difficult. But this year I am going to the Locus Awards, which will be on June 21st, 2025, for the in-person Locus Awards ceremony in the historic Nile Hall at Preservation Park in downtown Oakland, California. So yes, I will be there, as many of you may remember. Uncanny Magazine, Michael Damian Thomas and Lyndon Thomas, and 5 Uncanny Stories are all Locus Award finalists. So it is very exciting. And I will be there present at an award ceremony for the first time in quite some time. And Uncanny interviewer Kellen Amyokum will also be there, along with many other fabulous writers and friends and the staff of Locus. So very excited to be back in the Bay Area for an awards ceremony. And if you are there, please come up, say hi, and I will see you. Only other news right now, Space Unicorns, is that I am, along with the world's greatest staff in the universe, working on putting together all the little bits of, I'm just going to announce it now, shockingly, we will be running the Uncanny Magazine Year 12 Kickstarter soon. Fly Forever, Space Unicorns is the subtitle this year. I am in the middle, along with the staff, of putting together all the different aspects of the Kickstarter. So don't have an exact launch date yet, but it will be coming pretty soon after you listen to this. So keep your eyes out, Space Unicorns, because we're going to keep going. Right now, some of you may have been I know most of you do not probably watch science fiction magazine publishing the way I have to, but it's getting a little hairy out there, Space Unicorns. So, it's been very hard between a big online retailer kind of changing the terms of things and other things going on in general, just that make publishing a lot more difficult. And the disintegration of social media has been very difficult. So it's been, we're still all here. The science fiction magazines are still pushing hard, Space Unicorns, but it is getting harder and harder. And, we really and truly cannot do this without your support. and it means so very much to all of us, because we do believe that what Uncanny Magazine does is important, and I want to make sure that Uncanny is here for as long as possible. So please, if you we can still at the end of every episode you'll hear me talk about this stuff, and so please consider supporting us any way you can. It really means a lot. Thank you, Space Unicorns. And now a word from our sponsor, who is probably us.
This is Erica.
And this is Steven.
And we are the producers of the Uncanny Magazine podcast, here to tell you about how you can support Uncanny Magazine on Patreon.
Yes, Uncanny Magazine Patreon supporters help us pay for the fiction, poetry, interviews, and podcasts we bring you with every issue. Our patrons receive ranks in the Space Unicorn Ranger Corps, along with special treats and patronage milestones.
You can become a patron for as little as $1 per month. For more information and to check out our awesome goals and pledge perks, check out the Uncanny Magazine Patreon page at patreon.com/uncannymagazine.
And welcome back, Space Unicorns. In this episode of the Uncanny Magazine podcast, we feature the story The Breaker of Mountains and Rivers by Aliette de Bodard, the poem Moth Boy by Praise Osawaru, and finally, I interview Aliette de Bodard. So Aliette's story, The Breaker of Mountains and Rivers, Aliette is just, as many of you know, Aliette de Bodard is just very good at writing. It is just such a gorgeous story. Many of you probably have seen the Uncanny tagline in our, that we are specialized in stories that make you feel. And this, is this one ever one of those stories? This is just a story that is beautiful language and wonderful characterizations, and it is a bit on the shorter side, but wow, does it pack a punch. And I just love it to bits and can't wait to share it with you. So here we are, Space Unicorns, The Breaker of Mountains and Rivers by Aliette de Bodard, as read by Matt Peters.
Content note: torture. Imawane has lost track of time, hanging in the chains, everything contracting to the pain in her legs, the pull of the chains on her wrists, the broken ribs, the breath that rattles in her chest, the encroaching darkness that hovers at the edge of her field of vision but refuses to take her, the laughter of the demons, the patient and relentless questioning of her interrogator as the knives are applied again and again. Where are the 5 spiritual weapons? Tell me where they are, and you can rest. Where are they? And she can't breathe, and she can't talk, and she's clinging on to the locations of the 5 she hid as the war between the Celestials and the demons engulfed province after province. Hid them because the wholesale destruction they brought when wielded scared her to her bones, as close as the memory of Ayore and the evening strolling in Tian with blossoms on the trees, and Ayore's hand in hers. In the days before the demons overran Tian and Imawane herself was captured, taken for interrogation in this darkened room. You will stop now. Ayore? It sounds like her voice, and it doesn't. It's ice cold, and something in Imawane's battered body jerks away from it. Some primal urge to try and hide somewhere it won't notice her. But the only thing it does is make the chains clink and dig deeper into her flayed wrists, and she screams then, bracing herself for the low laughter of the demons. Instead, she feels the coldness and the darkness rise in the room, a deep and savage anger that threatens to drown everything. My lady, we're not done with questioning the celestial smith. A scream from the demon, and a crush of bones, and Ayore's cold voice. I gave orders not to harm her. And Imawane tries to jerk away again, but she's too exhausted, too spent. The chains release, and she flops, and someone is holding her, cradling her. I have you, my love. I have you. Love. She tries to speak the word, but only blood comes up. Ayore. Shh. Ayore's eyes are odd, redder than they should be. And not just because they're glistening with tears that smoke and evaporate the moment they touch her skin. She's burning hot, but it's not the burning of a fever. It's roiling, all-encompassing, a fire larger than Imawane's forge, a fire that would burn the world to cinders. She'd scare Imawane if Imawane had any fear left, but all she can think of is that she's being held and that the pain is receding. Something is holding it at bay. Someone is holding it at bay. Ayore. She tries to speak again. The words scatter in her throat. I have you. It's going to be fine, love. You'll heal. My lady, another voice, and something is dragged briefly into her field of vision. Imawane catches a glimpse of blood and dull eyes. A corpse. A celestial's corpse. Someone that Imawane doesn't recognize. What you requested. Ayore's attention turns briefly to the demon who has spoken. She'll do. The build and the hair are right, and anything else can be mimicked. Low laughter from her, but the anger is still underlying it. Mutilate it. Make sure the face can't be recognized and hang it on my banner. Her voice is harsh and matter of fact, and there's nothing left of the person Imawane remembers, the lover who whispered sweet nothings in her ears, the one that fucked her until they both cried. Ayore, what are you doing? Ayore's hand rests briefly on her cheeks, wiping away the blood, making sure my own side thinks you dead. Some would rather know where the 5 are to use them in war against you and wouldn't take kindly to my showing mercy. Why? Soft, low laughter from Ayore. Because I came to steal or corrupt the 5 you were crafting and found something I never expected instead. I don't She tries to say more, but everything is coming crashing down. The darkness held at bay for so long finally coming in. Oh, love, it's you I found, and I'll safeguard you. Shh, it's going to be fine. Wait for me, love. Heal. I'll come for you when this is all over, and the world has been remade anew and fairer. Ayore bends over her, then, and Imawane sees in her eyes the gleam of fire, the gleam of darkness. But her face is gentle as she kisses Imawane, slowly and deliberately, and like someone who is letting something infinitely precious slip away from her. Wait for me, love. And then everything goes dark. Imawane loses track of time again. She's in a bed this time, with soft sheets and a shadowed ceiling. Such unexpected things, and demons who don't laugh or delight in her pain, but come to change bandages and apply soothing salves to her body, and magic that feels like fire, scouring her from head to toe. They hold her down as she convulses, the eldest of them saying gently that they're very sorry, but they have to get the corruption out or she'll die. And it wouldn't be so bad to die, would it? Except that Ayore told Imawane to wait for her. In the brief intervals when she's lucid, Imawane thinks of Ayore, of the breaker of mountains and rivers, because that has to be who Ayore is really, beneath the tenderness and the fairness and the smiles. The demon sorceress biding her time until she could sally forth from the barren land of Kiyu, her army of demons behind her, sweeping over the world and burning everything in her wake. A myth, Imawane thought, until the vanguard of the demon army crossed into Theon, and her cousin Pharisai, directing the corpses of their prisoners after interrogation, saw that they weren't celestials or mortals, until Imawane's spiritual weapons turned from hunting and farming tools shared with the shorter-lived mortals to weapons in an all-encompassing war. Imawane thinks of the demons and of the spiritual weapons and of the war, of where she's supposed to stand, on the side of the celestials and of the light, on the other side of Ayore. When she's better, the demons help her, and her food becomes pickled vegetables and white rice instead of thin, liquefied porridge. The elderly one, who is called Ramai, supports her as Imawane takes her first faltering step in a garden beneath skies of raining ash. The trees are bare, the branches sharp and thorned. Imawane stares at them and weeps. Why are you crying? Because I'm far away from home, Imawane says. She could lie, She should lie or show more defiance, but she's in the midst of a blackened dead land with no escape she can see. Because I don't know what happened to my kin. Ramai is silent for a while. I don't know how the war is going, she says. In the heart of Kyu, we don't get news of what's happening, and even if we did, they wouldn't focus on the fate of Celestials. They'd be about who lives and dies among us. But you could leave if you wanted to find out. Imawane stares at her. Your mistress made sure I wouldn't. That's not what she said. Ramai's gaze is thoughtful, the fangs overhanging her thick lips. She told me to heal you and get you back to full strength. She didn't say you were a prisoner here. It's like a dash of cold water in Imawane's face, a confused flaring of an emotion she's not sure she can name, half anger, half something else, something that twists in her chest, something too strong, too flayed raw to be called love. Your mistress is the breaker of mountains and rivers, the corruptor, the ruler of the demons, the ones who tortured Imawane until she almost broke. Why would she even bother to come to Imawane, to have those long, slow meals, those walks in the darkness with the stars above them, those conversations about the future, about the welfare of their loved ones? Why would she? Because I came to steal or corrupt the 5 you were crafting and found something I never expected instead. It's you I found. Yes, Ramai says, but she wants you to be well. A sigh. I know what the others did to you. And wouldn't she do the same to others? To her enemies? Are you one of them? Imawane stares at the dead tree in the center of the garden. I should be. She's our leader, Ramai says. Her voice is low and sad. The one fighting with us for our future. Your future? An uncomfortable reminder of Ayore getting more animated, more angry than usual when they spoke of the future, of how she'd argue that the Celestials didn't give anyone a fair chance. Imawane had thought she was talking about the mortals, but that wasn't what she'd meant at all. She'd meant the demons. Ramai spreads her hands, pointing to the desolation all around them. Our right to live and to blossom. Demons. Imawane stares at her, and it occurs to her then that why should demons not have their own dreams, their own hopes for the future? You tortured me, she says, but she knows Celestials, such as her cousin Pharisai, have done the same to demons, and what does that make of either of them? In the silence that spreads, Imawane finally says, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. You're not the worst of what your kin did. It was unfair and unkind. Ramai's laughter is low and amused. Come, she says, and walks closer to the tree. Why? Imawane asks. Pointless defiance, a show that even now drains her. She's not well, and certainly not well enough for traveling through all of Kyu. The thought of facing the others, Sarme, Pharisai, Mizuka, of telling them what happened, why she was healed by demons, is an exhausting cliff wall she cannot contemplate. I want to show you some. Ramai points upwards. Imawane stares at the tree. It's a dead tree, a poisoned tree. Why? And then she sees it, silhouetted against the roiling darkness of the sky, the faint, glistening shape of flowers clinging to every branch. Translucent flowers with the sheen of pearls. The tree isn't dead. The blossoms are scattered all around. She's been walking on them and never realized it. It only flowers in darkness, and its flowers are only seen in darkness. Not everything is as it seems, Ramai says. Wait for me, my love. She's not healed. She's not strong enough. She can wait. A little. Until her wounds are fully gone, until she can travel out of Kyu, she can wait. And the treacherous part of her whispers that perhaps Ayore will come back in the meantime. When it happens, Imawane feels it. She's sitting on the bench beneath the ghost tree, breathing in the sharp, acrid taste of the flowers. When the entire world shudders and distorts, and there's a scream like a dying person's, except no scream should resonate this loudly or make Imawane feel like her own lungs are being wrung into bloody messes. She falls, gasping to her knees, tears streaming from her face. Above her, the roiling darkness turns a deep red. When she finally pulls herself up, she's shaking. She finds Ramai in the library, leaning against one of the soot-stained walls, her face pale, drained of blood. "What happened?" she asks. "The mistress," Ramai inhales, struggling to breathe. "The mistress." Imawane runs. She's not sure where, but it's as if something is guiding her, a magic that's rising from the heart of the fortress. Through the tree, the gardens, the sky, something that feels like it's going to pull her apart at any moment. She's going to pay for it later, she knows. She's not healed enough to be running, but it doesn't matter. There's a tower in the center of the fortress, and stairs guarded by demons that scatter when they see her, white-faced and disheveled. She takes the stairs 2 at a time, breath burning in her lungs, her barely healed ribs shaking, sending fresh waves of pain to her chest. Ayore, love, Ayore. At the top of the tower is something that looks like a darkened cradle, and beneath it, the shape of Ayore. She's pale, bloodless, wavering under a strong magic Imawane can't seem to breach, no matter how much she hammers at the invisible wall separating them. Her eyes are closed, her lips not just bruised or purple, but as dark as the tree in the garden. Her hands, the long-fingered ones that lingered on Imawane's own hands gently and tenderly, are bloodied, and one of them, the one clenched on the broken sword, is missing 3 fingers. "You can't see her," Ramai says. She's out of breath too. "I don't understand," Imawane says. "That's not the person you knew. She lost her body and her power. That's just the soul coalescing back here in a safe place after she was killed. A ghost of a ghost. Your side won." Ramai's voice is bitter. "The Celestials will seal Kiyu, kill all the demons they can find, pretend nothing ever happened, that she's dead for good." "She's not dead," Imawane says, clinging to the only thing that makes sense. Ramai spreads her hands. "She's healing. She'll make herself a new body, new powers, gather us again, try to give us a future." "And how long?" "I don't know." Ramai's voice is fearful, worried. "As long as it takes. You should leave. Find your kin, before it becomes impossible to cross the border without being killed." Imawane stares at Ayore, at the cocoon of magic building itself around her. Flowers blooming in the darkness. Lives given, lives shared. "I should leave," she says aloud. The words feel wrong on her tongue. She remains there transfixed, thinking on everything that separates them, on betrayals, on rescues, on questions unanswered, on anger and gratitude and love and everything she's not sure she can put into words. Of the conversation they never got to have, the one they can have when Ayore wakes up again. "Wait for me, my love." She raises a hand, lays it on the invisible wall, separating her from Ayore. "I'll wait here," she says softly, to the demon who cannot hear her. "My love."
Aliette de Bodard writes speculative fiction. She has won 3 Nebula Awards, an Ignite Award, a Locus Award, and 6 British Science Fiction Association Awards. She's the author of Navigational Entanglements, a Xianxia-inspired romantic space opera, and of A Fire Born of Exile, a sapphic Count of Monte Cristo in space. She lives in Paris. And now our poem, Moth Boy, by Praise Osawaru, as read by Matt Peters.
And the boy is on a rooftop, dropping a flower for his friend who jumped off a building. Some say he descended, like rain. Some say he plummeted like an arrow shot from heaven. All in all, no one ever thought, what if he flew downwards expecting to be caught? Or for a brief moment, an angel exhaled into his ribs. There is no twisted logic to this, I promise. I mean, something is always gnawing at the heart. The clouds exist to ornament the sky and fill the earth with a sinking song, such a saint. Who knows the origin of loss? Who lets sadness outside its box? What does this say of the body, a wingless entity destined to fall from the yawning light? We are either the birds falling from the sky or the ground catching a dead thing. Either way, the boy atop the roof is a moth in a field of fire.
Praise Osawaru is a writer whose work appears in Agbowo, Vaya, Frontier Poetry, The Main Review, 2035 Africa, and Uncanny Magazine, among others. He won the 2021 Valiant Scribe Poetry Prize and has been nominated for the Best of Net, Pushcart, and Nina Riggs Poetry Award. He is a prose editor at Chestnut Review, a Watering Hole Fellow, and a Hughes 2024 Scholar. So thank you for joining us on the Uncanny Magazine podcast. Today I'm joined by Aliette Bodard, the author of this month's podcast story, The Breaker of Mountains and Rivers. Welcome, Aliette.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's wonderful to have you. This is such a gorgeous story filled with intricate details and beautiful prose. What was your starting point or inspiration for the story?
So believe it or not, like Rings of Power. I got slightly annoyed at the Anadar Celebrimbor stuff in Rings of Power, and I was like, okay, you know what? No, Sauron's really an asshole in this one. So I appreciate what they're trying to do, and the actress is absolutely fabulous, but I kind of wanted a different vibe between the two of them. And so I dug up this old fanfic that I wrote about a couple of years ago that wasn't quite working the way I wanted to, and I was like, okay, let's do some work on that one. And then I was like, okay, and then I'm going to file off all the serial numbers so that the Tolkien estate doesn't actually sue me. So I removed every single detail. I had to take it apart with honestly, it was kind of explode the entire thing.
It is very, very well de-serial numbered.
It is, yes, but it was I felt like I was removing everything from it was a bit of a scary moment. I was like, okay, I think it's still working. I hope it's still working.
What was the easiest part of writing this story, and what was the most challenging thing?
I think the easiest part was writing, I had the whole, this is one of the stories where, kind of the whole thing, the whole kind of basic frame for the story, the kind of progression of scenes and everything came in fairly naturally. And what didn't really was the relationship between the two characters, because there's not a whole lot of time that they actually spent together, right? So, and part of the whole progression of the story is selling at least the importance of the relationship, if not, the actual presence. And so I had to slip it enough details that would be evocative enough without burdening the story too much with too much detail, because it's also quite short and it's in many ways it's a mood piece, right? So I was have to balance kind of those two, and I relied a lot on kind of connotations and mental images and stuff, and I always find these very hard to pitch, because you never quite know as a writer what it is that you're working with in the reader's mind, right? So I'm okay, I'm pushing those buttons and hoping that the right vibe comes out when I push those buttons for a reasonable number of people. I always find that a little mysterious and a sort of well, okay, let's try.
So it's interesting because I found The Breaker of Mountains and Rivers, they contain the characters are so richly developed and they had such complex relationships. How much did you need to know about your characters before you started writing, or did they just do things you didn't expect as you wrote?
I didn't know a lot of them, and I ended up backfilling their motivation as we went along. So I was they were very, very well behaved as characters. I didn't have to work a whole lot on them, but it was mostly exactly what have you been up to prior to this moment would be helpful, and that's where I had to work more on their actual how they got to know one another, what kind of background they would have, what kind of what was the state of their current relationship, and that sort of all sorts of things that didn't necessarily all make it into the story. But I kind of felt when I was doing the rewrite, I kind of felt that I needed to have a little more in my head as kind of a foundation for okay, this is what's going to drive their interactions.
Right. So Tell us about something you've read, watched, or consumed lately that you'd like to share with our listeners.
Well, I've been watching season 3 of The Wheel of Times, and it is gorgeous. So I read Robert Jordan when I was 15 or 16, I think, and I think it's the perfect age for getting into that kind of, especially the first books of like Wheel of Time, are kind of this big adventure, and the characters are very similar ages. Like they're slightly older, right, when it starts, but they have this kind of feel that you can empathize with when when you're 15, you want to be older, right?
Yes.
You can't wait to be like young adult, like they are, right? And so I ended up reading these, getting very heavily into them, and like writing, like I started writing a first novel, which was heavily inspired by like kind of magic system, which, again, let's not get it out until serial numbers have been seriously filed off.
Yes.
But I think like one of the things that the TV series does, like aside from bringing the vision to the screen and like it's such a gorgeous series, right? But one of the things that I think it does very well is like sort of do away with some of the weirder part of the gender essentialism. And it's always going to be a very tricky, because it's a world where women have the magical power and men are corrupted. So it's always a very tricky line to walk. And I think it does that really well. Everybody has like very good acting. And the other thing I think that it does really, really well, and a number of other series, notably Rings of Power, actually doesn't do so well, is show us people who have lives, right? And it shows us those very bustling cities, and it shows us a world where you feel that you could that it might be pleasant to live in, right? It wouldn't, like, it would be very different from ours, right? But you can imagine yourself living in all those different places. And it's got all those colors also as well, right? We were talking with a friend and realizing how much the current SFF shows can be sometimes very drab. And I think Wheel of Time does fabulous things with its colors and its costumes and its kind of, the kind of aesthetic and the music. And I think it all brings it together into this kind of really nice package. And they've made some changes to the book, but like I'm not a purist when it comes to that. I'm like, if it works for the medium, I think you should do what the medium actually needs rather than staying stuck on doing a by the book kind of thing, because I think you end up with a very disappointing adaptation if you do that.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Space Unicorns, for listening to the Uncanny Magazine podcast. As always, we couldn't do it without your help and support, especially those of you who are patrons on Patreon, Kickstarter backers, subscribers to Uncanny via waitlist books, or just run around spreading the good word to everybody. It means a great deal to us. And as always, we couldn't do this without the greatest staff in the universe. That includes our managing editor, Monty Lin, our poetry editor, Betsy Aoki, our podcast producer, Erica Ensign, our other podcast producer, Stephen Shapansky, our podcast readers, Matt Peters and Eric Ensign, our interviewer, Carolyn M. Yoakum, our assistant editor, Tanya Chen, and all of our submissions editors. So until next time, where I will probably be babbling quite a bit about all the Kickstarter things, shine on, Space Unicorns, shine on. Yay!
The Uncanny Magazine podcast theme is courtesy Null Device. Want to join the Space Unicorn Ranger Corps? You can find poetry, stories, and nonfiction every month in Uncanny Magazine. Go to uncannymagazine.com or subscribe to the ebook version at waitlistbooks.com. Uncanny Magazine podcast, copyright Uncanny Magazine.